And the guest that we have to speak today that I am so honored to have on the call is Doug Gustafson. So Doug is the founder of HomesNOW. He founded it in 2017 after the Bernie Sanders revolution sort of woke people up across the country to the fact that, you know, maybe we should be looking at some parties other than the Republicans and the Democrats. Maybe we need to be looking at a new way of seeing the world. Maybe we need to be concerned about climate crisis. Maybe we need to be concerned about freedom and civil rights and business and all these other things. And I met him originally because at the time I was involved in political action. I ran for county executive, and a few years later I ran for county sheriff. But in the middle of that, there was a huge learning curve on how politics work. And Doug and a couple of his people got involved in the criminal justice thing, but they did it from the standpoint of the homeless and the public issues of social crisis, because our county was not providing for the homeless. It was not providing for people who were bucked off the economy, and Doug stepped up. And with that, I just want to say Doug did a bunch of work with us in the technology arena when we were getting our websites, you know, knocked out over and over again. We would build them and they'd be taken down for somebody, and then we'd build them again and he'd save them, and somebody else would come along and try to take him out. And it wasn't Doug's fault. It was the way, it was a bunch of other stuff. But eventually you found your volunteer place in this society, and you started talking about homelessness and all the problems that we had in the coalition, and you founded this HomesNOW Not Later, and you're here to talk about the tiny home villages, the path that you've gone through over the past few years, the struggle of actually, and I hate the word struggle, but it has been actually, of trying to establish a basis for a nonprofit that is not funded by government establishment. It's funded because people stepped up to help you, and you guys worked your butts off to build a platform. And now you're working to stay autonomous, working with people with lived experience to help people get off the ground because they want to, and you're giving them tools to do it. So welcome to the show, Doug Gustafson. Take it away. Talk about whatever you want. Oh, except your mic is on.
I am myself. Hi, I'm Doug Gustafson, chairman of HomesNOW Not Later. HomesNOW started in June of 2017 with the goal of ending homelessness one person at a time. The way we ended up forming in the first place, before I get into that, what we currently do is we manage 2 of the 3 tiny home villages in Bellingham, the first 2 tiny home communities to exist in Bellingham, Unity Village in Fairhaven, and Swift Haven up by the Frank Jerry baseball fields. We have a resident managed approach, meaning that the people who live there are the people who run the village and operate it, manage it. Within the contracts that we've had to sign with the city, because both sites are on city land, we haven't taken any money for operations, although on those sites the city did put in infrastructure, and at Swift Haven, for example, the county did buy the structures and donated the structures to us, but we are not government funded per se. We started at first. I got into this by I'm one of the original co-founders, one of 4 people, and I got into this first in 2015-ish when Bernie Sanders was running, and I was campaigning for Bernie. I don't really like him as much these days, but at the same time, I met a lot of people during that process, and that was a good thing. And one of those people was Jim Peterson. He was formerly homeless for 17 years, and we were really campaigning for Bernie. After that played out like it did, we were pretty disappointed at what happened. And I kind of had the idea of, our mistake was kind of like relying on a politician to fight fight for us or do things for us. So maybe we should maybe we should keep our organization together, but focus on a local issue. Specifically, and the main issue that came to mind in Bellingham and Whatcom County was homelessness. That's, to me, one of the most visible problems we have here, that I can see. And so in 2017, we founded HomesNOW Not Later as a 501c3 nonprofit. Our goal from the beginning was to, build a place for people to live who are in that position and not in a congregate shelter setting like the Lighthouse Mission, like base camp, or back then it was the drop-in center. And again, I'm not blasting any other model either. I'm just saying, well, we were trying to do something different, and we wanted to operate things in a way that the people who were in that position and were homeless are the ones who manage it. And the reason why we wanted to go with this peers helping peers type model is because it can scale up quickly. All you need is a one-time cost of setting up some infrastructure on a site, putting some structures up, and then if it's operated by the people who live there, you have virtually zero operating costs. Sure, we have costs related to maintenance, like when stuff breaks, or basic cleaning supplies, the basics to keep a site operating. But the thing that is the biggest amount of money that is used in any operation, no matter what it is the paid staff. So that's the thing that we have sacrificed. So we have been able to punch above our weight class politically, I guess, because of sacrificing that. And so, if you're not having to pay staff and a site is being managed effectively and safely, then that frees up more resources for us to help more people. So this is something that can scale up. This could be set up anywhere in the country. There's parking lots everywhere. There's grass fields everywhere, around the country. And with both of our villages, we are on city sites. So one of our villages is on the parking lot of a baseball field. There's 4 baseball fields. They let us use the parking lot of one of the 4 baseball fields. And then in Fairhaven, we are right next to the sewer treatment plant. And letting this person in. And that used to be a parking lot as well. So in order for the hardest part of this whole process has not been the day-to-day operations of how running things. It's a challenge. It can be a challenge. We have our good days, we have our bad days. But the hard part has been, here's a spot you could do it on. So the main requirements that we have are land, a 1/4 of an acre, or more is better, but a 1/4 of an acre minimum. Unity Village is on a 1/4 of an acre. And basic utilities like water and electric. Sewer would be nice, because at both of our villages we have porta potties instead of actually flushing toilets, but we've always wanted to upgrade if it's possible. But as far as how we operate, how is this managed? Well, we don't actually have a ton of what I would call outside volunteers running everything. It is the people who live at the villages who are volunteering to maintain their own housing situation. That is the key to how we operate. Yeah.
So when you talk about having porta potties outside, but are you hooked up to sewer? Are you hooked up to water? Are you hooked up to?
We're hooked up to water and electricity. Just the toilets are porta potties. And
what about showers and laundry?
We have showers and laundry. Yes. At Swift Haven, we do have a sewer line. It's just for gray water though, and it drains right in. At Unity Village, we do not have sewer. So what we do is we pump the water into a gray water trailer, and we empty that once a day. Luckily, the sewer treatment plant right next door lets us do that. So we empty it right next door. We use our truck. On that note, both villages have their own vehicle. Residents with a valid driver's license can use the vehicle for various purposes. And each village has their own bank account. So each village is responsible for maintaining the finances of their own village. We tried to be as self-sufficient as possible. To be honest, the amount of help from outside organizations has not been optimal. We have gotten some help, but sometimes Compass Health has helped quite a bit when there's like a mental health, issue that occurs sometimes. Bridge to Services has been helpful too. They've actually helped get people into our villages by referral, and also we have worked with them on donations. So if we get, because people like to donate to the villages, and sometimes we get an excess of donations. So if there's any other organizations that are trying to specifically do outreach and stuff, we welcome them to come and gather stuff and get it out to people who are on the street. We've even done that with SOS. They've grabbed stuff that was donated at the village to bring and do outreach as well. So we've always been open with working with anybody. We are just trying to solve a problem, and but what makes us different though is the fact that the residents manage and operate it, and that includes the meetings we have with the city on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. That includes policies, rules, procedures. The village is run democratically, so basically when it comes to a major decision that has to be made at the village, we usually gather together for a meeting. We discuss the issue at length, and then we vote on it. And that, oh, the lights turned off in here. Maybe it's motion detect. I'm sitting too still. Okay.
So one thought as you start doing this, if you want to show a picture of HomesNOW and the different villages, that might be helpful for people to get a visual orientation to what you're talking about. What you're saying is brilliant, and a lot of people don't have any idea what you're really talking about.
Okay, so I'll just go to the quickest way is for me to go to our Facebook pages, because we have like pictures there. So first we have Unity Village, tiny home community, and these are what the structures look like. This is our own custom design. It was our own blueprint, and we built these ourselves with volunteer labor. And so this is what the structures look like. Let me see if there's a few other pictures here. Let's see, media. Oh, is that the wrong page?
Well, that was certainly you building some stuff.
Yeah. Let me go to HomesNOW page.
By the way, guys, while he's looking around at these things, I just want to say that this is absolutely so professional, so well run, so organized. It is so clean. It is something that as a community member in this community, I am so proud to know the people who put this thing together and have this thing work, and to have them pull it up from the nothing. I mean, to truly, this is the power of community working with passion together to go around any obstacles in their way to make this thing happen. And Tina's on the call here. She's the manager of this specific village, and I'm sure that you'll introduce her at some point. But I just wanted to say that this is something that our community can be really proud of, except we can't really take credit. Doug and his team of people are the ones who really put out including, I mean, there's many people in this community have helped put it together, and then this is another village. So take it back, Doug.
Yeah. So this is our, you just saw pictures of Unity Village. This is our second village, Swift Haven. And now, as I said before, at this village, we did not end up using our custom design because of the speed at which we had to open. So in this case, the county donated the 25 structures, and the city allowed us to use the parking lot, and HomesNOW was the operator. And we went from 0 to an entire village in 2 weeks. And so the way that it happened so quickly for Swift Haven specifically was that there was a camp at City Hall, and I'm sharing the screen for the moment. There was a camp at City Hall. The shelters were full. Everything was full. And at that point, there was pressure on the city to do something. And the group of people that was managing the camp downtown, they were called Bellingham Occupied Protest. They were negotiating with the city. Those negotiations broke down. And that's when we stepped forward and said, well, we can do a village. We can do another village. You guys were saying you were willing to do it with these guys. So, you already know that we have a good track record and that we can do it and we can pull it off. So what ended up happening was the mayor of Bellingham, Seth Fleetwood, signed an emergency executive order so that we didn't have to go through the permitting process, and we were allowed to use that site, which is Frank Jerry Field's parking lot. And the city got Public Works to come in and put the infrastructure in for electric and water and drainage. And in 2 weeks, this was in December of 2020. In 2 weeks, we got online. And Swift Haven's been operating ever since. Unity Village has been in operation for 3 years now, or more, a little over 3 years. We opened Unity Village in August of 2019 and Swift Haven in December of 2020. And we are also prepared to set up a third site as well. The way that we're able to kind of pull this off without millions of dollars or anything like that is because the people who live there are the people that run it. And if you live there, you are actually more reliable as a volunteer because that's your place where you live. You want where you live to be as good as it can possibly be. And what this does too is this changes the narrative on homelessness because there's a lot of stereotypes around homelessness, and people assume that just because you're homeless means that you're unstable or mentally ill or that you're not capable of managing and operating a site safely and effectively. And we have found that not to be the case. Yes, there are people that are not able to do well in this type of environment where they're having to take care of themselves. But I'd say most people are able to do that. The majority can. And so that is not something, like in most programs too, you just have to take what you're given. There's a loss of autonomy. There's a lot of hoops you have to jump through to get anything. We try to keep things as simple as possible. We don't have any time limits, so people can stay as long as they feel that place is right for them. If somebody finds housing as well, real housing, because we're technically classified as shelter, we have wanted to set up actual housing, but tiny homes as they are not really allowed in the zoning because you can't have a lot of zoning restrictions require that you can't have more than 3 unrelated people living on the same property in single family zoning, which 85% of the zoning is single family. It's just letting you know. But we're classified as an emergency shelter. So if you're classified as an emergency shelter, you can operate a tiny home village. However, there is a limit of 5 years. Now, it used to be 2 years in the municipal code, the Bellingham Municipal Code 20.215. And we got it increased to 5 years. So I pushed hard for the 5 years. By the time they changed it to 5 years, Unity Village had already been there for more than 2 years. So they had to change something. I suspect that after 5 years, they'll change it to 7 years. I don't know, but it's temporary. But I think that what's happening, because homelessness is getting worse, is temporary's becoming temporary, right? So
one of the things I wanted to say is that Ilona is on here, and she toured the villages with Doug, and she's got some photos that she would like to share when you're ready to have her share them. I think it's nice to have people from the outside give some perspective on what Doug's doing, because what he's doing is an inch by an inch by an inch by an inch, and he's having to deal with all kinds of small pieces to go through. Can we do that with her?
Yeah, she can show whatever picture she wants. Yeah, go,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Ilona, are you there? Now that you said you do it?
Just a second, I'm just looking that I'm sharing the right screen.
Uh-huh.
I think it's...
So it started out 2
yep.
years, went up to 5 years on some, but you're still having to go back to the 2-year site kind of story at the other site, right?
It's weird.
No, what it is that at Unity Village, our first village, they are going to be expanding the sewer treatment plant in roughly a year. And so when they expand the sewer treatment plant, the space that's currently occupied by Unity Village will have to be used for the expansion of that facility.
Got it. So you're going to have to find a new site, a new location, a new place to go to locate more stuff.
And the city has indicated that they are looking for a site. They have said that our program is successful, and I think it would be a PR nightmare for them to throw 25 people back into homelessness when they're doing great at the village. But between both villages, we house around 50 people between the two. The city of Bellingham has indicated that they are looking for a site to move Unity Village to. In meetings I had with the city, they said, well, how come you haven't been reaching out on your own to different groups, like different municipalities or the county, or for another site? You know, why? And my response was that we actually did, and the port approved a third site, and then the city said, you know what, that's not your third site. We're actually going to move Swift Haven to Cornwall. And then we did a petition. We got about 1,000 signatures, and we turned it into the mayor's office. It was a non-binding petition, but I just figured it would help. And they decided to change course, and they didn't move us to that site. And so now we got to keep our site. So I kind of said to the city, hey, I'll feel comfortable seeking out a third site once you guys find a site to move Unity Village to. Because if I find a third site now, you're going to say, congratulations, guys, that's your site to move Unity Village to. And we definitely don't want to stagnate or be where we're at. We want to be able to help more people, right? So that is
sharing. Currently, you're just sharing a lot of pictures, but we can't see any of them.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Yeah, just don't share until you've got one of your pictures up.
Well, I do on my screen, but I can't share that screen for some reason. So
maybe
I
move
have
it to the other screen.
Yeah, I've only got the one screen, so I can't really shift anything back and forth. And when I look at the options I can share, I only get my, this thing with all the pictures, and then I need to open them again. So I'm sorry, this is not working the way I thought it would.
Well, then keep going, Doug.
Yeah, so there's a comment in the chat I wanted to address. Tiny home village is beyond far superior to homeless people trying to camp. Why would anyone ever consider making a successful solution end? It should be copied. The support you have gotten from bureaucrats is amazing. Okay, so yeah, so the bureaucrats generally do support us now. That wasn't always the case. We've had to butt heads quite a few times. Now it's a little easier for us because we've been operating for 3 years, and it's like the longer we last, the more it's like, well, looks like it's working. Right. And so at first we had no track record. So in the early days of when we were trying to get something, tiny home villages, even as an emergency shelter, were not allowed in the municipal code. But we were able to open a tent encampment in the parking lot of City Hall, in the back parking lot of City Hall. And basically that was called Winter Haven. And that was in January of 2019, and that lasted 3 months because the time limits were very short in the beginning. Then we moved to another site with all the same residents. They moved from Winter Haven to another site that was in the 911 dispatch center parking lot. And that was called Safe Haven. And then after 90 days, or no, I think it was more than 90 days, but it was, actually, I think it was 90 days. After 90 days, we were able to Fairhaven, and construction began on the tiny homes at Fairhaven, and that was Unity Village. And so Unity Village opened in August of 2019, but before that point, we were doing tent encampments because that's all we were allowed to do at the time. We weren't even allowed to build tiny homes.
So even before that, now watch the progression of what it takes to get people to believe that real people can get things done. What Doug had to originally do, Doug and Jim and the woman who moved to Portugal, why am I spacing out on her name?
Amy Glasser.
Yeah, Amy Glasser and other people in the community, and eventually Marcus as well, was all part of this process of getting visibility. And it took an enormous amount just to get visibility in the first place. And they had 3-minute testimonial times in county council or city council meetings in order to get things moving. Eventually, that shower truck that was seen in that one video, that shower truck was one of the first physical things that had to happen. But when they built the shower truck, so notice what happens. You have people, according to the people who don't want to do it, you just got people like yapping at you, right? You just got people yapping and complaining and this and that and the other thing. And eventually you have to see something physical. And once they saw the shower truck, and the shower truck got painted, and it became obvious and they could move it around from one place to another. And then eventually you ended up putting it in the back of the city hall inside that first enclosure, right? Do I have the sequence right?
Yeah.
And then they had to get more visible. And then they had to take just a little bit, and people would dole out a little tiny bit, you know, a couple months here and a couple months there. And, oh yeah, well, we could concede this. But it took crisis conditions to really move it off the starting line.
Yeah, crisis conditions for almost every step of the way where we made gains. I would describe it as the pressure. If the local government doesn't feel the pressure, and again, you don't even have to be the ones directly applying the pressure. It's just that there are moments that occur where you can see that the pressure is high for a particular course of action to be taken. And so, for example, our second village was able to start. If I had gone in during the summer and said, we can set up a second village, try to shake their hand, the answer would have been totally no. But the fact is, all the shelters were full. There was tents on City Hall. There was lots of letters coming in, do something. You guys aren't doing anything. And then we step up and say, hey, we can set up a tiny home village. And so then things happened very quickly after that. But without the pressure being on them, it wouldn't have happened. And the same thing, you know, with our tent encampments and with our villages, the police have also commented that crime has gone down in the surrounding neighborhood wherever we've been hosted. The last figure cited was around 30%. So the crime goes down by about 30% where HomesNOW has been hosted. And we don't get a lot of police calls. Sometimes things happen, usually not with a resident. Usually it's somebody from the outside causing a problem or something. But the police have commented that they really like us because they don't have to get called down there at all, really, or very rarely. We have found that if you have like neighbors looking out for each other and looking externally from the site, a lot of crime can be kind of prevented because it just acts as a deterrent. You know, it's a safe place. So people who are trying to commit crimes tend to avoid that type of thing. You know, we have cameras and stuff too. So yeah.
So the other thing I'm thinking is that it might be nice, because you never know when people have to get off the call. And I would like Tina to be able to talk about it, because she has been here walking beside you, building this tiny home village up and helping.
She does a great job. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's been helping you pioneer, how in the world do you actually run the village? And part of that is because, again, as I've spoken on some of our previous things, people with lived experience know how to live with experience. I mean, there's not a joke there. And so
Right.
can you introduce her and give an idea of how valuable she's been?
Oh yeah, Tina has been very helpful. She is the main manager down at Unity Village. She's seen everything down there day to day. She's been there for 3 years. There has as far as I can tell, there hasn't been a good form of housing offered to her, so that's why she's still with us. Of course, she has said she would work with us anyway, even if she wasn't a resident anymore. Or I totally believe her. Anyway, Tina, if you want to speak a little bit about life at the village or a little bit of the history or whatever, that would be welcome.
And it is nice, Tina, when you do lean forward so we can see your face a little bit, because you have a very beautiful smile and we'd love to hear from you. And you have to unbutton your microphone. You're good. There you go. Thanks, Tina.
Thank you, you guys. Yeah, I've been with this group from the beginning here at Unity. I was also with Winter Haven and over in Sunnyland. I did a lot of community outreach for them back at that time. That was when I was still working with the Rainbow Center with mentally challenged people and helping them to be able to have functions in their life on a day-to-day basis of toothpaste, deodorant, your normal hygiene needs of a day. And that got me started in my community working to better what is going on in our town. I really enjoyed my time working at the Rainbow Center and never foreseen that the Rainbow Center was going to go down and life was going to change for me and my housing was going to flip upside down as well. And I'm at over 10 years without having a permanent home and found HomesNOW and got the experience of building here with Doug and meeting all of the wonderful community that we have that helps out this wonderful group of people that we work with. We really have been blessed to have the people that have came to Doug and learned through our community about HomesNOW and what it can do for you. There aren't other programs out there. I've been through almost every one of them trying to get me housed. And like Doug said, they've tried many times to house me, but they try to revert me back to Dorothy Place, the Y, now 22 North, Francis Place. I have been working at this for a very long time, and I don't understand why I need to go backwards instead of being like a normal citizen like everyone, other than our income. And income isn't going to change when you're on disability, which I am. So there has to be other factors that change in our community. And so working in this community the way it has become for the villages has been a really wonderful experience because you get to meet every walk of life, but they're still just humans without a house.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't understand. They're just humans without a house. And it is a challenge. Don't get me wrong, it's a very tiring job. Doug works his butt off, as do I. And I wouldn't do anything else. And he's stuck with me, whether he likes to know it or admit it. But even if I didn't live in this village, I'd still be here to help in any way that was needed. We all have to learn how to live under a structure and know we can actually succeed out there in housing again ourselves. And that's what this place is teaching these people, that you still can take care of yourself.
So in a way, Tina, you're like the little red hen, the story of the little red hen.
Yeah.
And you have to teach people how to forage and how to help bake the bread and how put it all together and how to do all this. And it's really, when you look at that tiny home village from the outside, the pictures that you showed, Doug, those flowers, the plants, you've got a goldfish bowl in the center of this place where there's goldfish. You've got this thing running like somebody's, estate because you
Mhm.
care and you put your heart and soul into it. So can you talk a little bit about that?
I believe when we got here, if you look back and you think about the first picture Doug showed, that was us now. And if you think and you look back to the picture that it was the last one he showed of our village, there was no plants, there was nothing. It's when we very first opened the doors here. And that feeling that we had, I personally, that I had when we opened our doors and there was no plants or anything, very little. It wasn't as warm as it needed to be to make these people feel safe. It was just gravel and cement. And so I was like, Doug, let's get some plants in here. Let's get some life in here. So they feel like they have life back. And I have people in here now that they literally bring their own plants. They're growing their own vegetables. They're out weeding. It gives them structure back in their life. And to see those smiles and to watch that growth, because that's them growing. That's the flower in them being able to be someone again, because they didn't think they had that. And on the street, you don't. You know, you get told, don't sit down, don't sit there, don't lean there. You're just homeless. We have nowhere for you. And we hear it every day. Well, here we have somewhere, and it's beautiful. And both of our villages are very beautiful. Look at the colors of the houses. It enlightens their spirits. It really does. It gives them sense of, this is mine.
Someone is, hold on a minute. Someone
Alex
needs to
keeps
mute.
unmuting himself and saying stuff, so I don't know.
Well, Alex, please do mute yourself. And Charla, if you could mute yourself as well. I'm not seeing how I can mute you. That's one of the things that we will do if there's noise that comes in the background. And I don't know
Gotcha.
why Charla isn't being muted, but whoever is making the noise, yeah, thank you for muting. Go back, Tina. The fact that people develop a sense of self-respect and respect of other people. Not you. I didn't ask you to mute yourself. You need to bring your mic back on, Tina. Why is Tina not? I'll ask to unmute. There you go.
There we go. Sorry, it muted everybody at that moment. That was bizarre. No, everybody needs to realize what it actually makes a person feel like when you live in a structure like this. I have people that are brand new right now that it's actually a blessing to get to hear them come up and get up in the morning and say how blessed they feel they are, that they're in a safe place and they don't have to worry about craziness happening like you get when you're living on the street. You don't know who's going to be knocking on your leg to get you up off the ground because you have nowhere else to be. And Doug has given this beautiful structure and has created this sanctuary of security for these people that it takes them a couple weeks to get settled down and realize that this isn't going anywhere. And they have to do rules. They have to want to do the community work that keeps their home clean. So the public does come by and say, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. Because it is a beautiful place. You know, I mean, we take big pride in our villages because we want them to take pride in it. And Doug works his hiney off to keep this place looking immaculate and keeping us in a structure that we can keep our home like this. I tell them when they move in, anything you want a steak for dinner, we're going to give you a steak for dinner, because that's important. They need to know that their needs and their wants are mattering to want to move forward and get out of the homeless situations that they're in. And believe me, it's hard. I've been doing it a long time. And this is the most secure I've felt in ever in my life. I can honestly say ever in my life. This has been the most security I've had, that I didn't have to worry about what was going on the other side of that wall, or what's going on above me in that apartment, or that place that they're wanting to put me in, that somebody was just murdered on their stairs. Or I don't want to be in those places anymore. And I don't have those kinds of things in our village because everybody respects the rules. Yeah, you always got a bad egg somewhere, but within 2 weeks time of them coming in here, we usually see through those factors and we're able to work out something for them that it either changes their behavior or They changed it
Valerie.
enough that they have food.
I am Valerie. Man, I am black man. I am near black mamba man.
One,
Massachusetts. I live in Massachusetts. Yes.
Can I help you?
Yes, please help me. You help me, please, now, please help me.
I removed Alex from chat.
Okay, thank you. Tina, can you go ahead? You're gonna have to unmute mic yourself again. Good.
Sorry, I wasn't quite sure what was happening there.
It's that Alex guy or whatever. He was just talking over you, and it was like some weird stuff. I don't
Well,
know.
So the
Sounded like
thing
an
is,
alien on my side.
the thing that's good for everybody on the call to realize is that when you're living in a homeless village or when you're living with people who are on the streets, these kinds of interruptions do happen a lot because people have needs. And when they have needs, just like Irene was talking about this morning, when you have somebody who can't communicate or is not being heard, they become what appeared to other people to be irrational or obnoxious. And so these things happen. And bless those of you who can live in the villages so that we can help people who have challenges to be heard, to get the help they need. And I want to go back to something you said, because some people are going to take this sideways. You said, if somebody really needs a steak, you'll get them a steak. That makes
Yeah.
it sound like, wow, you guys are rich. You're serving steak and eggs and shrimp and prawns, whatever you want, we'll give it to you. So I just want to be
They never
clear about
asked for
that.
a
That's
steak,
not what
first
you
of
mean.
all.
Huh?
They never asked for a steak, first of all.
Oh, they're not privileged enough to think that they could get that automatically.
But that was right. No, that references back to something that actually did occur after I took over after Jim, because Jim was one of the original co-founders. There was some issues that with him, how he managed the organization, money-wise and treatment of residents-wise, and so he was removed from the board. At that point, though, when I came in, I was just trying to make everybody feel more comfortable. And one of the first meeting that where this was being explained and stuff, the first issue that was on the table was that people were stealing each other's food and stuff. And I was like, look, there's no reason to steal each other's food. Everything's gonna be okay. Like, if you want a steak, we'll get you a steak. Don't take somebody else's. And then that turned into a thing where some volunteers were like, well, you don't want to make their life too comfortable here. I'm like, they just went through a lot. I think we need to make it a little more comfortable, but for a while at least, because so that's where that came from.
Good. I'm glad I asked, because
there's not regular steak.
Yeah, it raised a bunch of red flags. They were flapping around in the wind here.
But people do donate that stuff, so we'll get people that donate, meat, like frozen meat and home cooked meals and stuff like that.
We've had people donate caviar, and I'm really not joking, because there was people standing here going, "What? Are you kidding? We don't even know how to eat it."
So you do have one great big tent.
Funny stuff.
Yeah, you have one great big tent where you store a lot of the food that comes in, and you get a lot of donations, and it's probably irregular in the patterns in which, and so you end up re-spreading it around, like to SOS or to Bridges to Services or some of these other people, probably, right?
Yep.
We donate a lot out to the outreach people that make sandwiches and meals for them, because I don't need 200 cans of tomatoes. I don't need 50 pounds of rice. I don't need 100 pounds of oatmeal. It turns into granola bars and casseroles that we take out in small dishes to the people that are outreach to.
Nice.
We have some great people that come and pick up all the donations we get. We have had abundance of fresh produce that has came out, and that has all gone right back out to the street. We did not let any of it go to waste. That is just something that we reprocess everything. I mean,
yeah, if we
not
can.
Not everything is always peaches and cream around here. We had that experience last night of helping someone, and they still came in here in the middle of the night and helped themselves to belongings on our property. And it's, you got to take it with a grain of salt. that person obviously needed some help and was afraid to ask, and it happened. But we're just grateful that we have those kind of things, that they can take care of themselves, even being afraid. But unfortunately, this person had mental illness and I wasn't able to help her, and she was trying to break into cars. So that's one of the reasons Doug said, very, very seldom do we have to call the police, but this was already becoming a problem. And she came in here and stole off our property last night. I was more than willing yesterday to help and hopefully get her housed. And that fell through real quick. You just never know what you're going to get minute to minute. You know, we just try our best and hopefully we can help as many as we possibly can.
And that's one other area where the villages are useful is, you know, when people are just like raw on the streets, right? It's actually hard to get them what they need, as far as like, if you're wanting to donate to somebody, as an individual, it would be very difficult. But with a village, you know that that's there. It ends up kind of being a hub of donations. And at that point, it can be redistributed, or if somebody needs help, we can help them directly with what we've got at the village. So in that case, and also in that case, even for those not living in the village themselves, it is still helpful to them anyway. And so I just think we need to do more of these. We again, we're ready to do a third site, and we don't want to expand too fast to where we will overextend ourselves, but I think we are ready to go to the next step. 2 villages was a challenge for the first few months, especially. Like, you know, running 2 sites is almost like running 4 sites versus just 1, right? And so, but oh, Joy, you're moving.
Talk about the scalability of this and what it has taken, and how you believe and why you believe you could run multiple sites as long as they're small and tight. I mean, there's a reason that you're doing it that way. Yeah.
Because when you don't want one massive site. There's been a push for that in the past by some to have like, well, can't you just do one site of 150 or 100? That would not be good, because there would be a lot more of where you don't know who's who or what's what, who knows who. There would be 100 personalities clashing instead of 25, and because partially when you're living in a village, it's like having 25 roommates. There's some serious downsides to that. There's some upsides because people help each other out, and it's a community, and you know, you can make each other's lives easier. But at the same time, you're dealing with 25 personalities at a village, and so if you have one big site, you would need more staff. Your infrastructure would need, you'd need 2 kitchen tents. You'd need more security. More bathrooms, and it would be harder to even know who your neighbor is or what's going on. So and also it would concentrate poverty. So that was the biggest problem in the past when they had the projects, the big high-rise buildings that they did as back decades ago, is because they would concentrate poverty into one part of town. And have all 500 of them in one place, and that created a lot of crime, a lot of drugs, a lot of problems and stuff like that. When you scatter it out more, like you have a village in every neighborhood, that gives each neighborhood a chance to contribute to help people. And also it also allows a lot more neighbors in the city and in the county to see that homelessness isn't what they think it is. There's actually a lot more people who are homeless than you think, because there's, again, I go back to the stereotypes about homelessness. There is the guy on the concrete that might have mental health issues or might be an addict or something, but that's one sliver of the entire larger population. And if you walk by somebody on the street who's homeless but they shower at the Y, you wouldn't know they're homeless, right? And they don't want you to know they're homeless, because if you do know that they're homeless, then you're not going to be getting that job, or you're not going to be getting a service that you need. There's a lot of shame that goes along with it, and it's societal shame. It's not justified, but it just happens, right? And so something like a village not only allows people to have a community at the village, but it allows the community in general outside the village to get to know their neighbors and on a real basis while being out of survival, right? And so, and then that makes it easier for people to sign up for services or to get what they need. Yeah, and it's been. I think we need a lot more of these. I think that we are not. We are one option of many, right, or one option of few, and so before we were here, there was no option for a resident managed approach, and there's lots of people who get empowered by the fact that they have a say in their own housing situation and that they have to help operate it and make it run as smoothly as possible. In a lot of other organizations, that's not the case. It's that you have the staff, they're paid, and they kind of just tell you what to do and how it's going to work. And here's your time limit. There's places that have 90-day time limits. You got to get out if you didn't find housing in time. We also deal with the other part that we are starting to deal with now that does concern me is that the city has kind of tried to push this a little bit in the past, and they keep kind of hinting at it, is they're kind of slow motion pushing us in this direction of where they have indicated that in the future they might require HomesNOW to join what is something that is called coordinated entry. And I'll briefly explain what coordinated entry is, but it's a labyrinthine set of guidelines that come from the Housing and Urban Development at the federal level and through the Washington State Department of Commerce. And what it's officially billed as is a referral system so the idea is that if you're homeless, you would sign up in one place, and that from there a caretaker organization in each county would decide which programs that you would be good in. So you only apply at one place, and in our case, that organization would be the Opportunity Council. So the way it would, so if we were forced to join coordinated entry as HomesNOW, right now what we do is we take applications on our website directly. We take referrals directly. If you know someone who needs help, get them filled out on an application on our website, or show up in person. We'll let you use the computer to fill out an application. Okay, and then we do the interviews and we invite them to visit the village, and then the village democratically decides yes or no on person coming in. Okay, that's how we do it. But coordinated entry is that you fill out you go through the Opportunity Council. You fill out a big data entry thing. It's called the SPDAT, and it measures your vulnerability and length of time homeless. And based on that SPDAT score, they decide you would be a good fit for HomesNOW. You would be a good fit for Lydia Place. An Opportunity Council would be decided. And that is a federal level policy. It's mandated. It's a mandate. And so there's workarounds to the mandate, but I am also on the coordinated entry governing body, but I do not support coordinated entry as a system. I don't think it's very good. I think it's very complicated. It doesn't increase the number of units or the number of housing. All it is a rationing system for the housing that does exist. And so we're talking like if you're on the Titanic, and like we're on the Titanic, right? It's sinking. You've got about 500 lifeboats, but you really need 3,000 lifeboats. So coordinated entry decides out of all the people who are homeless, who's going to be getting onto those 500 lifeboats, and they go into the race and gender, other equity categories as to who deserves that limited slot the most. However, I feel like that's doing things in reverse because there needs to be more lifeboats, straight up.
Yeah.
And that's the elephant in the room. Build more units, get more units online. And if you can get more units online, then you don't have to ration housing.
So in other words, what you're saying is that by rationing housing and by putting it through an administrative process, what you're doing is you're circling people around only a couple of houses instead of putting people to work going out to get more houses, which is what we really need to be doing.
Yeah, and there's money that goes into it too, just to ration. And when I'm in these meetings, I just try to ask. I guess I would describe it as ask difficult questions. I'm not combative or anything like that, but I do enjoy opening a can of worms. And
That's because you're fishing. I know you're fishing for new ideas.
no, like I'll say something like, how can coordinated entry increase the number of units available? And then they have to go, well, coordinated entry isn't about increasing units available. I'm like, so it ends up, so I'll ask questions like that. Like I know the answer, but I want them to say it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But with that, I kind of resent the idea that we would have to join that because, or I don't know how they can prove its efficacy or its effectiveness, and what metrics do they use to determine that that would be a better way to do it? Because in these meetings, one of the difficult questions I asked was, okay, let's say somebody applied to coordinated entry. What is the range of time by which you will get into a place? Like a minimum, like the fastest it could be and the longest it could be. And the answer was that at minimum, it will take 6 months to get into any place. So you'll be on the streets for 6 months and you have to check in every month where you get to the back of the line. And that's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. For us, if we have an opening, we can fill it in about a week or two, depending on how fast Bellingham Police Department gets the warrant checks back to us. Because part of the process is when somebody applies, we send their ID and their date of birth and everything to Bellingham Police Department, where they check for active warrants and stuff like that. We also do our own background checks in addition, but it typically takes about a week to hear back. So if we can work in time scales of 1 to 2 weeks to get somebody in there, even days in some cases, if we get a fast response time, and we're being told, hey, you need to join this thing that's going to slow you guys way down. And by the way, another organization is going to decide who gets into your villages, and we're just taken hostage, then like, why would I support that? I don't. So we've always pushed back hard on that. We've always said it's a hard no. And so the city still kind of made us do a little bit of it. And part of that, and what I mean by made us do it a little bit, was they gave us our 2-year renewal of permit, but they said you must have residents sign up for the housing pool, which when you do the intake of coordinated entry as an individual who's homeless, that is what puts you on the housing pool. So we were required to make residents call the Opportunity Council and sign up for the housing pool, but we don't actually have to take referrals from coordinated entry into our villages as an organization. And we felt that was okay, but also kind of useless because because as I told you, the score upon which somebody gets into that apartment or gets into that housing first is based on the SPDAT, which measures length of time homeless and vulnerability. So what happens when you are homeless and then you enter a tiny home village, you start living at a tiny home village? Well, that actually makes your vulnerability score go way down. You're actually less vulnerable when you're in a tiny home village, which is a good thing, right? But that is why we actually haven't had many residents get housing through the housing pool or coordinated entry. I don't think we've had even one resident get housing through that because they're at a much lower vulnerability rate ranking once they live at a tiny home village. We have a 48% rehousing rate, but that has almost exclusively been residents finding their own housing. Like, so they do it themselves. They find a room somewhere, they find an apartment, they are able to save up some money by living it, that they work. So we have a near zero rent situation. Residents pay utilities and it's voluntary, but that just cuts the difference so we can cover our costs and not rely solely on donations. But the fact is that if you're not paying 50% of your income on housing all the time, you're able to save up money, get into a place and maybe find some roommates or whatever. And so that has been the vast majority. The housing pool has not really gotten a single resident into housing, although we have had residents, like if people chose to leave or if they were asked to leave the village for rule violations or things like that, they have actually been able to get housing after they've left the village because their vulnerability score goes up at that point, right? So, but we just try to make, we are technically classified as shelter, but we just try to make it as much like a housing situation as possible. And yeah, one extra requirement we have, because we don't have paid staff and everything like that, is that is that residents have to act in a staff capacity as a condition to, live there.
So
And
what that does, just to do a little break in tempo here, what you're really talking about is teaching people self-management, self-achievement, self-desirability. I mean, they actually set goals to want to leave, not because they have to leave and because somebody arbitrarily tells them they have to leave, but you provide them a step ladder so that they're less afraid to step out on their own if they don't know how to manage, because they now have learned, and you help them do things like learn how to budget so that they can save money. Because one of the problems that happens, oftentimes people who come in there have no background in money management or finance or business, and they don't know how to even navigate getting onto their own place, even if they had the money to do it. So you start them wherever they're at and help them slide up the scale to independence. So then they want to move out. Is that correct?
part of it is part of the benefit of having residents acting in a staff capacity to operate the site is it's just like you're going to have to take care of yourself in the real world outside of the village. You're going to have to work with others, maintain your finances, things like that. And so if you have to do that at the village and working together to do that, then that is a good stepping stone for you to get there. And it's a very simple and basic way to see it, and there's plenty of residents who come in who have skills. They know how to manage money. They know how to do construction. There's lots of people who are homeless who have actual hard skills, right? And so people teach each other their skills, and everybody benefits as a result. And yeah, there's downsides of having 25 roommates too. So yeah, some people really like living in that community living setting, and they might have been with us longer, or maybe a better option isn't available to them if they're on disability or something. But then there's people that are like, you know what, I kind of want to have my own place now, and then they save up money and they can move out, and so then that opens up a slot for somebody else. But the fact is, we just need a lot more of it. We just need a lot more places for people to live. Like it's the progress has been too slow as far as how fast it could be. And
So while he's broke down there.
Sorry. Joy kind of cut out for a minute there.
Yes, she's frozen on my end as well, so we need to
Okay.
just wait.
Okay. Well, I'll just continue. But yeah, like I mean, if we boil it down to its most simple, like how this gets done. The hardest part of any village is when you first open it. Because that's when you throw a bunch of people together that don't know each other. The expectations aren't set yet, and it takes a little bit of time to figure it out. After a few months, the tone is set, and when new people come in, there's like a structure. Like, hey, somebody that's been there a long time is like, hey, this is how it works around here. Here's the cleaning supplies. Here's our jobs that we do. And all of that. And yeah, I'd say the vast majority of people who are in the position of being homeless can operate pretty well at a village like the model that we have. And we just need to be able to set up more. The city or the county just needs to identify some sites, or private individual, but we haven't had as much luck with private individuals, and the money aspect is always like a little less on that front. So, the city or the mayor or the county executive can tell their planning department, identify some sites for this. Then they put in the infrastructure for the sites. They can use their public works department. They don't have to significantly alter their budgets. Sure, it costs a little bit of money, but it doesn't require raising taxes. We're not talking millions of dollars here. And then that takes a problem off of the street. It takes people out of the shelters and into a more housing-like situation. And at which point you're getting people out of the tents. You can stop doing sweeps, things like that. But people need to have places to go. And I know everybody wants to kind of ignore or think that if we don't provide a place for them to go, then they'll go somewhere else. But if everybody's just passing the buck along, kicking the can down the road, then everywhere it just creates a wash, because so another town makes someone leave, they come to Bellingham makes them leave, they go somewhere else. And the end result is just more people become homeless. And so, and the idea that if you build these and people will just flock here, that's not true either. We've actually helped people move away. Like, so somebody's not able to afford a plane ticket or something, they want to get back to Wisconsin, or they want to get back to Tennessee where they came from. We've helped them, move back home too. They can get on the train and go back home, and that opens a slot for somebody else. So it's a win-win, really. And I just think we can do more. And it's not super complicated. Yeah, it's a lot of hard work, but it's not like we can't do it, right? And again, it's not just coming. I'm one of the original co-founders, and I know I play a significant role. But if the residents were not running both villages effectively and safely, then it would have failed a long time ago. And so this is a group effort. This is a team effort, and that's why also when major decisions have to be made, it's made in a democratic fashion where everybody has a vote, and that kind of prevents a situation in which one person has all the power, which in most organizations, that's not usually a good thing when one person has all the power. It can lead to abuses of authority and stuff like that. So we are proud of what we've built, and we're ready to do more. Yeah.
So can you speak to the money part of this? Because I know that there's some people, like they brought in another tiny home village, and it cost $1 million to put this thing in place. Explain the difference economically, because
Yes.
a lot of people don't understand economics, and they don't understand the ripple effect, and they don't understand how to save money on the front end. If you don't spend the money, you don't have to make more. So talk about your philosophy about all that. And if people have questions of him as we're going along, feel free. The way that you do it in a Zoom call is you put up a hand. There's a little logo thing at the bottom, and you can raise your hand and people can answer questions for you. Kasha, do you want to ask a question before he answers this next series?
Yes. Hello, Douglas. I'm
Hi.
dying to find out if you know of similar project like yours in Yakima.
In Yakima, no. Although I am working with a group in Denton, Texas, called the Denton Basic Services Center, and they are trying to set up a tiny home village that's similar to our model as well. I'm on their board as well, and we're trying to get one set up in Denton, Texas as well. And they're dealing with a lot of the same challenges that we dealt with as HomesNOW with our city. So I'm trying to help them be successful and hopefully get another one open there too. So
What city is that? Denton?
Denton, Texas. Yeah.
Okay. That might be fun for our other friend who's on here, who just appears to have gone away. I'll mention it to Karen. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah. And so on the economics front, so again, we try to be as self-sufficient as possible. When it comes to the economics of setting up these villages, right? You have one-time fixed costs, meaning like you got to spend the money once, and then from there you have ongoing regular costs. Okay, and so the difference between our villages and the other village, which the third village is managed by Low Income Housing Institute, otherwise known as Lehigh, out of Seattle, and they control about 23 tiny home villages plus apartment complexes. They have about $149 million worth of assets. They bring in about $30 million a year, or I think actually no, it's more than that. It's like $49 million a year, almost exclusively through government funding. And so the one-time fixed costs are putting in the sewer, putting in the electric, putting in the infrastructure, putting in the water, the bathrooms, the tiny homes themselves. That is the one-time fixed cost. Then you have ongoing operations costs, which when you when you hear that they're like, oh, we need money for operations. Operations refers to staff. So in their model, in the Lehigh model, they have paid staff. So somebody getting, you know, $50,000 a year or something like that to be staff at the village that are not residents, that do not live there. So so if you have 7 staff or something like that to cover all the shifts, that ends up being millions and millions of dollars eventually to pay all those people. So so that's and so for us, not having paid staff, being all volunteer, and the volunteers are the people who live there, that means that if we were to set up a third site, any new residents coming in would end up being staff at 0 operations costs and as volunteers, and we would be able to quickly set up more sites. The only issue is those one-time fixed costs, which to set up Swift Haven was a one-time cost of around $200,000 for all the structures and the electric infrastructure and the water and sewer infrastructure, and that's it. But we don't have yearly operating costs. And again, if we have to move to another site, these structures are movable, so they can be moved to the other site. So that's what I mean, is that there's a one-time fixed cost, and then there's ongoing costs. And so if, however, you were going to have the paid staff model and you were going to set up a second village, third village, you're getting into millions and millions of dollars. That requires raising taxes. That the success rate isn't any higher. I think it's actually lower than our success rate. But the thing that's a little bit of a wild card, and I think this is why the government was initially hesitant, is of our model, is that there is like this disbelief in some circles that people who are homeless can run a site effectively and safely in a stable way. There's assumptions about that you're incompetent because you're homeless, right? And that's not true at all. And you know, we've proven that over the course of a few years. We originally weren't allowed to have resident staff. In our permit, it said that a non-resident board member had to be on site 24/7. We did get it changed, not by asking for permission though. COVID ended up being a blessing for us as far as being able to get that done, because it created a loophole, and the loophole was such that our permit said that a board member had to be on site 24/7. That meant that at the time I was staying at the village 3 days a week, like living at the village 3 days a week. And it kind of sucked. Okay. Like it felt like a full-time job. Okay. I got to go down to the village, even though I have my own house. And it just felt, and I wasn't allowed to leave. So it felt like I was trapped, you know, that kind of thing. And even though I like going down there all the time, but just the fact that it's turned into like, here's my shift now, just totally changed my mindset to not as good of a direction. But when COVID hit, that provided an opportunity, because our permit said board member has to be on site 24/7. And because of COVID, no unnecessary board members, unnecessary volunteers, unnecessary guests will enter the site in order to prevent COVID spread. So and the governor also ordered everyone to stay at home order at that time. So we followed the governor's orders. I stayed at home. All the board who was staying down there multiple days per week, we all decided to stay at home, and we had designated resident managers like Tina, who were operating the site effectively while this was going on. And I made the legal argument. This is when we got found out about, because they didn't find out about it for 7 months. It took the city that long to find out. And it wasn't because anything bad happened. Nothing wrong happened. They just were told by somebody that we weren't staying down there every night like what was required in our permit. So I made the legal argument that none of the board was essential for the safe operations of the site in accordance with our permit, and that the governor's order to stay at home was above the order of the permit to have board members stay down there 24/7. And that seemed to work. The other part of the story is that the city said, and this was August of 2020, they said, this was a Friday, and they said, we're going to decide over the weekend whether to shut you guys down, because it says in our permit, we will shut you down if you don't have a board member on site 24/7. So we made a series of interviews. All the residents did a video. We put it on our Facebook page in which they made the case that they were adults, they manage their own village, and that they don't need a babysitter. I made the legal argument that the governor's order to stay at home was above the order of the permit, that in order to follow the not resident board member requirement, we would have had to increase the risk of COVID spread, and that was irresponsible. And the city on Monday said, after we did these videos, they said, well, I think there's a clear path forward, and they changed the permit to be more reasonable. But we were also told that if we had asked if they would change it, they would have said no. So we literally had to violate our permit on purpose in order to show that it worked long enough without them finding out, so that they just, the path of least resistance for them is fine, we'll change the permit. So sometimes we've had to do things that way, take risks to get gains, and that was one example of that.
So one of the things I wanted to share right now, I just got back in here, but check out the front page of Homes Now, Not Later, because look at the number of videos, little short videos that he's made over time to allow
residents.
Residents have made, so people can start to see the impact of this. And he provides financial reports for any of you who are trying to do things like this in your community. This is the kind of stuff that humanizes the village. It's not just a brand. One of the challenges we've had is that a lot of people who have criminal histories really don't want to be promoted as having criminal histories. So it's harder to do that. But when you're living homeless anyway, and you've got successes, this is an incredibly powerful thing to do. And he's also got events and news and projects that he's working on, how to apply photos that's going on in here. I really would like to promote that before I got booted out just a minute ago. So I'm getting nervous about getting booted out, but I wanted to make sure that people saw this so that they know how to access you and help you, Doug. So you've got about 10 or 15 more minutes. What else have you not been able to cover that you want to cover in this period of time here?
I would like to answer any questions that anybody has. I might have some final thoughts, but there's a lot there. I could go on for hours, but is there anything that anybody's wondering about that they'd like to ask, or anything at all? Ask whatever you want. If not, I'll just kind of finish it out. But
I would like to ask anybody, think about the myths. What is it that people have told you about the homeless or about this kind of project that you don't know whether it's true or not? Ask him, because here's the Mythbuster present. Irene, go for it.
I have no questions, Doug. What I have is total praise for what you've done for so many people, and it will spread exponentially because it's the right thing to do. I visited both your camps. They are very, very tidy. The people are very friendly. They're very gracious. They're very thankful and grateful. So I'd like to clone you. So if you'd step over here to my machine.
oh.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
I second voice that one. Anybody else want to ask a question or pass on a thought? If you've got other resources that you could add to the table, please do it. Go ahead, Kasha.
I actually have a question because, you know, when I was visiting you in Bellingham, we drove once to one of those places. Is this where you donated clothes? Was that one of Douglas's places? It
is.
Okay.
Yeah, and we brought a bunch of bags of clothes down. And
then before Ilona will take over, I'm wondering if Faith would like to share something, because I really feel since I met Faith, she has a big heart for that subject. And she was also putting some comments into the chat. So if you would like to speak, make sure to do not lose that opportunity. Thank you.
Can I? This is Faith. I have been trying to I'm in an area in South Carolina, all the way on the other side. And I've been trying to establish even affordable housing. I mean, not just homeless. They ship the homeless off here. They deny they're here. And there's, I was a school teacher. There was 695 homeless children that they knew of in the school system. So you're right, that homeless people are in plain sight. We just don't know they're homeless. But the reason I was remarking about getting the bureaucrats to participate, and I know it was no small feat. I have nothing but stonewalling going on here, but it doesn't mean I'm so encouraged by your results, and you're amazing. No, anyone who has ever tried to make a solution has got to be godsmacked at your persistence and what you've done, and double done. Not only helped people have homes and security, but also gave them value, because you are 1,000% right. And that's why the bureaucrats and those in power are such a wall to go up against, is we just have this idea, if anyone needs help or they don't have money, they don't have value. We have this idea, if you don't have money, you don't have value. And it's a horrible, horrible, inhumane idea. And the COVID thing just exacerbated a problem that was in this country. But in a way, another thing that came out is it did shine a spotlight that this is a real problem that is in our country that needs to be addressed, and in a humane manner, not like I was volunteering at a food bank, and they basically gave people a 6-page application to tell their whole life story for food of second helpings that would get thrown in the dumpster anyway. I tried to take that to our local people and say, what is wrong with you? Why do you want people to fill out 6 pages of why they need to eat food? Nobody who has a lot of money to buy food is going to go get old food for free. It's this idea we have. And so a lot of education has to happen. I mean, but for the grace of God, a whole lot of regular, normal, middle-class people walking around could be exactly in that same situation. So I want to copy it. It's so needed. And I think there's probably a lot of people who would want to copy it. So I don't know if I can try to contact you directly or
yeah, feel free to. And I will say that when it comes to the bureaucratic side, they are, the key to that is like literally you have to understand the municipal code, which staff can do what and all that, because it's a very different world as far as how they operate. And so I literally have to put my lawyer cap on, and actually running the place and making it safe and smooth and all that is one skill set. But there's another skill set as far as where you kind of have to pin the bureaucrats against the wall, not in a mean way, but like, hey, look, your guys' legal documents literally say that this is possible under these conditions. And when you look at what we're trying to do, they meet all of these conditions and blah, blah, blah. You have to speak their lawyer speak. And it's very tedious. Like there's just thousands and thousands of pages of everything that you gotta have it so that there's only one escape hatch out, and that's to move forward with a village, or a service or something, right? And that's kind of the difficult part, but we've been able to achieve it. The reason why we've been able to achieve it to some extent is because of keeping the deal very simple. We're asking for very little. We're basically saying, provide a space for us to do this, put in the infrastructure, and we'll take care of the rest. And the deal is very simple the deal is we're solving a problem. We take a problem off of their hands. We're not in it to make money, and it doesn't require them to significantly alter their budgets. So it's allowed to go forward. Even though we are not, in a lot of cases, we are not really I would say we're not the preferred partner, because we run things in kind of a different way that I think creates a little bit of risk percentage from the government's perspective. But it's getting a little easier now for us because of running and operating smoothly for over 3 years, running villages, and now 2 villages. So but when you have no track record, that's when it's the hardest to get anything through, because they can just say, well, they have no experience, therefore they're illegitimate to even let them try, but we're at least past that hump now. And that wasn't easy either. I mean, we had for us to get our first tent encampment, what we did was we set up a camp at City Hall, an illegal camp, and we managed it as our organization. And we did that for a number of weeks. They eventually said we had to go, and we did. But then the year after that, we said, or Jim, who was president at the time, he went into a city council meeting and he said, if you guys don't give us a site to operate in a legal way, we promise you we will set up another camp at City Hall until you do. And then the next day they called us in and said, we've decided to grant your request. So literally, and it wasn't a request, it was like hey, if you don't let us do the right thing, we're going to make things difficult for you. And then when they work with us, we make it easier for them. So I don't know. That's kind of how
it's been a process. You guys have had to, this is not easy work, guys, playing politics when you hold no cards.
Yeah.
You hold no cards at all. And to be able, Doug, for you to be able to go in and read the legal documents, that's what we've had to do. You actually have to go in and read their language. They will not come into your viewfinder. You have to figure out how to get inside their viewfinder and then figure out how you're going to build the bridge. And I think, Tina, you were trying to say something. Did you want to say something else?
I just want to thank you all for being here and supporting us today, because this means the world to us as the people of this community that are just reaching out and trying to get stable again. And
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for acknowledging that we are just the same as everyone else.
Yeah, we are human beings first. Mel, you wanted to say something?
Well, I just wanted to share my appreciation for the good work, in a sense, and an understanding of the variety of factors and forces that need to be navigated, negotiated, and understood for something like that to be happen. The kind of doggedness. I've also been involved in not creating the houses, but in terms of homeless shelters and creating safety issues for people. But the other thing is more wonderment. I'm not asking you to spend a lot of time in this, but there's a kind of community acceptance scale. And you kind of got through the first one in terms of you've been around long enough to prove that it's not you dealt with the visual, I hate to say it, but visual pollution issue that so many people have in their heads about homeless and treatment. I think you understand what I'm saying about that. And but the issue is, as you try and scale that up, you've got multiple issues. As I see scarcity of land, I'm still new to the community, so hear this from the perspective I'm learning. And I have experience in other places, but I don't know this community's capacity in terms. I know land is an issue here and land usage. And one of the things you really need to scale this up is land. Am I correct?
Yeah.
The dynamic of that is going to be then the priority of land use when you have scarcity of use. So I don't know if that factor is something you see or.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is that land is pretty expensive here, and it's not necessarily scarce, but it is expensive, and it's pretty much all spoken for. So, and the zoning isn't there too. So even if we somehow cobbled up the money to buy our own land, we're not allowed to do this on our own land in a long-term way. It would have to be an emergency shelter like we do now, and then it would have to be moved along after 5 years, even if it was our own land. Okay, so that is why we've gone with speaking with the city or the county for possible, because they have land, they have surplus land, they have public property that they can use. They have at least a loose mandate to look after the general welfare of society, and that this fits along with that. And that's where we've been able to make gains, I guess. And even if it came to the point where, the county or the city could buy land that's designated for this purpose. It doesn't even have to be the land that they already currently have, even though it can be. The problem is that when you are asking them for land, they don't, it's not like you say, we want to do this, and then they say, okay, we'll find some sites. No, you have to play a game of 20 questions. So you have to say, what about this site? And you find out on your own that they own it and what it's used for, and then you propose it. And then a lot of times they'll say, then a lot of times they'll say, no, not that site that you proposed, but we have this other site. And so they actually will give you, well, it's like, well, why didn't you say that site was available in the first place? You have to like kind of pin them down to get them to answer the question. And then once they do, once you've gone through all the requirements as written, through all these, hoops, then they finally are like, well, it looks like they meet all the requirements and it's allowed to go through. But
Yeah.
it could be a lot smoother. It's not like their goal is like, oh, we're going to be trying to help people that are homeless as much as possible. It's not really the mindset that they're coming from. And I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm saying the government's mindset is like, just they're operating from a totally different space. It's all very legal. It's all very detailed and bureaucratic. And sometimes there's a lot of like the right hand doesn't know what the left foot is doing. One person might only have skills in this one area versus this other person in this other area. And getting them all to get together and for a common purpose is, a challenge. But we're gradually getting better at it over time.
So on that note, Mel, one of the things that I would like us to see us to do in one of that stair step ladders that I was talking about yesterday, if we got a coalition of respected adults in the community, and I'm not going to put any better words on it than that, because it isn't about status or class or money or whatever. It's people who are respected, who could come together and say, look, you know what, there's colleges that are not being appropriately used. There's industrial buildings all over this community that are not being used. There's business people in this community that would love to be able to use their property, but the reason that they can't use their property for this project is because their banks will take their funding away if they give it away or donated it. There's laws and rules in the banking industry that will throw their business into foreclosure. So unless they are bringing in market value, they're going to lose if they donate, which is crazy. But it's like we've got this chaos of fractured non-possibilities that just keep butting up against each other. And if we had a group of intelligent adults who could sit, and you know what, I'd even take young ones who just simply think way outside the box. Okay, because I don't care, just responsible people. I don't care how old you are, but put them in a room and say, how are we going to solve this collective, chaotic mess problem? It could be that if you played enough of the wire game, we could come to the center and say, you know what, there's this massive college parking lot down here that is not being used, or the port is not using this property, or the emergency services division for Whatcom County has a 30,000 square foot building out by the airport that only 4 people work in. It's a massive facility. It was given to us by the feds. What if we could use that for housing? What if we could use that warehouse? They tore a perfectly good warehouse down on the port property that's been sitting there for a long term that could have housed and taken care of all kinds of people for the last 5 to 10 years. And they took it down and they wouldn't even talk to us about it. But if you've got a group of people teaming up together and we as a force field go in and say, why can't we do this? Tell us why we can't. And tell us what are the pieces. So we come in as problem solvers and challenge them on so many fronts that eventually the city, the port, and the county, because the port has a responsibility and they have money, and the port has a responsibility to do economic development. And if housing is not doing economic development, if it's actually costing us money, then it seems like we could have an argument there.
So Joy, I think you're right, but I want to build on what Doug was saying. Part of the success of what he's done is he's created community, and he's created capacity of equipping people, giving them the time to learn the skills to take their next step. And one of the challenges is going to be, I think, Doug, if I heard you right, the next step becomes a higher step, because financially, to find the one room or find the next step for people is going to be increasingly challenging. And maybe that's the way to do it. I mean, it may be that we've got to figure out providing some viable next steps for people in terms of the economy of this time and how it's escalating. So it's both dealing with the now and the not yet, thinking ahead what would be the next capacity that's going to be needed for the 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and getting people to see that, or otherwise you're going to have a log jam again. We're going to fall backwards instead of having taken a step forward.
So it's almost like we need an economic development mastermind, Alona. We need your masterminding to talk about where's the money really coming from, going to, how's it costing the taxpayers really? And how do we analyze, you know, what is it really costing all of us? But we can't do it one person at a time trying to figure it out. We actually need people from all these different layers in our community to tackle the problem.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Actually, while I've got the mic, I just want to tell both Tina and Doug. I mean, it's been said before, but it's been such an honor actually to meet you guys. I was very, very moved by your, and I am, as you can hear, by your passion, by your big heart, and by your persistence to just keep going against all odds. So really, if there's anything I can do, I will help you. And there will be a lot more discussions about an economy that actually does reach people, and not just buildings and systems and structures and robots and zombies. So thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Yeah, sounds
We're
good.
about done, Doug. So you've got
Yeah.
just a couple minutes, because we're going to have to sign off on this recording, and then we're
Yeah,
gonna
and I've got a
back
meeting
in.
to get to as well.
Yeah. So
shortly
tell
here.
us your
But-
closing comments.
But all I wanted to say is that thank you for inviting me here. We are open to the public anytime. So anybody that's in the Bellingham area, feel free to stop by. We're open every day. I will leave some of our, like our operations plan and paperwork stuff with the Restorative Community Coalition, so they can review that. And just that we are ready to do more, help more people. We definitely can scale up. We just need some land, and we're ready to make some more history. Okay, so it's a day by day thing, but we are eager to do more, and I thank you for inviting me here today to speak. And yeah, if there's anything else I can do, feel free to hit me up directly. If anybody has my phone number, it's okay to give it out to others, and we can hopefully work together and get something done for all of us and for people in general, and make progress. That's basically where I'm at, is trying to make progress every day.
So I want you, because we're going to have to hang up, and Shanae, we're going to have you come back in. I got to close the meeting, but I want you to meet Doug. If you don't know Doug, do you know Shanae? Have you guys met each other yet? You don't recognize
Shanae.
Shanae is do you know him?
I have heard your name a lot. I don't know if I've ever.
I don't know if we've
seen
met
your
in person,
face,
but
I think I've talked to you before on the phone, maybe, or something.
oh, okay. Yeah, I remember your name. I've seen your name before, but I don't remember in what context.
Right.
So you guys are going to end up talking to each other probably a lot, because one of the things that Shanae is working on with us, she's the next speaker at 3 o'clock. We're going to be talking about the Restore a Life Center and the strategies that we have to build this bridge, because we've been We've got to build a bridge between all these different barriers and to create a hub for communication. So I just wanted you guys to recognize yourselves by eyes, and you'll be introduced at another point in time.
All right.
Awesome. Sounds
So
good.
thank you all, and let's sign off, and we'll come back at 3 o'clock. Hope you can rejoin us.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
And Frank, I hope you got the whole transcript, because I got booted